Hey, the first thing I want to do is a prayer that Karen requested before she was, while she was able. It comes from Numbers 6:24 to 26. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm David Denning. Welcome and thanks for coming to this memorial for my sister Linda. Karen was born in 1956 on December 3rd in Everett, Washington. She was the third child. Our parents, Earl and Dorothy. Brother Steve was first in 1952. I was 1954. Karen in 1956 and Linda in 1958. When Karen was 2 years old, we moved to Kearney, where our father opened up an accounting business in Kearney. When Karen was 5, our father died unexpectedly, suddenly, and left Mom alone to raise the 4 kids. At the time, we were age 9, 8, 5, and 3. And so times were pretty hard for a while, and Mom worked really, really hard. And at a fairly young age, I'm pretty sure Karen decided that she wanted to be as self-sufficient as she could possibly be and materially successful. And so from a very young age, she wanted to kind of make sure that things were taken care of, and she pursued a lot and did a lot. When we were 8, when Karen was 8, we moved to Lincoln. She went to Eastridge Elementary School, Millard Leffler Junior High, and graduated from East High in 1975. After that, she attended the University of Nebraska, where she was a member of the Pi Beta Phi sorority. She spent her junior year abroad in Spain, attending the University of Seville in Seville, Spain, and then traveled extensively in Europe for a while before returning to Lincoln and graduated from UNL with a degree in finance. After college, she went to work for IBM. She worked for IBM for several years. She was a system analyst, and she was also in marketing representative, and she specialized in banking, software, and hardware. After several years, she left IBM. She started several successful businesses here in Lincoln. She had several businesses that made it into the Inc. magazine's 500 fastest growing privately owned businesses in America. Multiple different times. I think she had 3 different companies that made that list. She was invited to several White House sponsored business panels and trade groupings, and she accompanied Ben Nelson, who governor and then later senator, on trade missions in Japan, Hong Kong, and China. In 1996, she was named the Nebraska Entrepreneur of the Year. And also that same year, she founded the Karen Denning Fund for Women's Studies Endowment at the University of Nebraska, which still is still there. She sold her businesses all in 1997, and in 1998 she moved to California because she wanted to learn about the entertainment industry and to pursue her love of music. She lived in Southern California at the same time I was living in Las Vegas. So I visited her there. She visited me in Las Vegas at various times. She would come to Las Vegas every year for the Comdex conventions, which is a big computer trade show, and she had lots of connections and new people, and so I got to benefit. We got invited to parties. We went to a party at someone's house that B.B. King played at his house. I mean, I went to one time I sat at the same table with Gene Hackman and Will Smith, and they had just made the movie Enemy of the State, and went to a party hosted by the King of Norway. So Karen had connections with just in the computer industry, just amazing connections, and she pursued a lot of different things. While she was in California, she studied acting. She made connections. She met a lot of people. I know one of the people who helped her a lot to get into things. She met Ed Asner and became a good friend with him, and so she would learn about things and get little tiny things to be in, maybe as an extra or maybe as a reoccurring extra, things like that. And a couple of her, Chicago Hope was probably the one that she was in the most, and she played a cardiologist on Chicago Hope. She also did a couple little things in a show called ER and also in a show called Mad Men. And she appears in some various scenes and, a couple of movies. And I know I've seen one where she's at a dinner table with Christine Applegate and a couple other people. She also pursued her love of music. Karen played multiple instruments, but the piano was always her first love. She had a Bosendorfer concert grand piano, and I know they showed a picture of that up on the thing there, which was kind of her pride and joy. And it was a spectacular piano. It was, anybody's familiar there, they have one extra octave than a regular keyboard. They have a lower one, and all the things are double strung because they were originally built and invented for Franz Liszt because he played so violently that he would break the strings on pianos. So that was a guy, Bosendorfer, built the pianos for him, and so she had that. She did a lot of, while she was there in California, she got a degree in music from the College of Marin, and she pursued various singing and playing. She also played the guitar, she played the saxophone, and toward the very end she learned how to play the flute, but the piano was always her main thing. And when we were kids, we all learned piano when we were young. My mom played, my grandma played, and all of us, but Karen kept going. The rest of us didn't. She also spent time while she was there consulting for various businesses and mentoring young entrepreneurs. Was involved in a lot of community organizations, music organizations, entertainment, business organizations. She did in, I believe it was 2011, she went to Nigeria for a while to teach at the American University, teach entrepreneurship. It was cut fairly short because she got malaria while she was there, but while she was there, her piano she of course couldn't take, so she put it in a studio which was owned by Bob Weir, who was from the Grateful Dead, so those of you familiar with the Grateful Dead. And I know Bruce Hornsby used that piano, and I think I'd heard at one time even recorded one of his albums on her piano. Karen loved to travel. She traveled a lot. I know there's some people here who went to China with her. She went to Vietnam, to Cuba, various things. In 2000, Karen, Linda, Steve, and we all did a 2-week trip to Scotland to kind of just kind of explore our family roots and ancestral history. We spent time in the town of Dunning, Scotland, where we went to the Dunning Church, which was built in 1021 and was still open at that time when we were there. And then the Dunning Hotel, the Dunning Pub, whatever. So it was really interesting. We also, while we were there, my mom's side of the family was Hannah. And they were having the clan gathering for Clan Hannah, so we went to the clan gathering for my mom's side of the family while we were there, and met people from all over the world who were in one way or another, related to us. Karen later, she moved to Seattle from Southern California, probably around 2009, and she was in the Seattle area. In 2013, she came here. She bought the family house that we all grew up over in East Ridge on Eldon Drive, and so then she split her time between Lincoln and Seattle, back and forth. And then she sold that house in 2018 and was then permanently back in Seattle. After that time, in November of 2019, Karen was diagnosed with liver cancer with a prognosis of possibly 2 years. She spent the last 2 years living her life fully. She wrote a book, which there's copies in the back. Everybody is invited to take one. She went on a lot of spiritual journeys. I know she went to Mexico to meet with some spiritual healers and different things. She wrote a lot of music. She compiled a lot of things, like her video and stuff here, and some things preparing for what was going to come. In late August of this year, August 25th, she had a stroke. And when she was in the hospital, they discovered that the cancer had metastasized to her brain, and that was kind of going to be the end. And she passed away peacefully on October 1st in Mercer Island. So the rest of her siblings are all alive. So Steve, Linda, and I are survived by us, and also She has several nieces, Allison, Joy, Billy Joe, and nephews, David, Jonah, and she has and also step niece and nephew, April, a niece, and Shane, and some great nieces and great nephews. She accomplished an awful lot in her lifetime, and there's no way I could, stand up here and do it justice, and tell you the things that she did. She has a website, if you haven't seen it, it's called KarenDenning.org, where she has put together, and there's various categories of things she did in music, things she did in, in her businesses, things she did at various, so kind of a compilation of a lot of things that she accomplished in her life. And so if you've seen it, you know how much stuff's there. And if you haven't, it's pretty impressive. There's just a lot there, and it's just, hard to even get a handle on all the things she did. She was extremely active, extremely busy, and when she got interested in something, she pursued it with a lot of energy and passion, and just did a lot of things. So she passed away too soon. At 64 just seems extremely young. So I can remember a day when it wouldn't have, but it sure does anymore. But she just passed too soon, and who knows what else she would have had and would have accomplished in her time. And so I'm done with my part. I know they want to play a song that Karen sang. Karen was singing the music that was on that video that was on there, and on her website she does have various, well, actually a lot of examples of her playing and singing and things, and there's just a lot there. I'd say it's pretty fun to look at, and a lot of good memories and such. So they're going to play her singing "Amazing Grace," and then a couple people who Karen would hope would come up and say a few words. I have Margaret Berry and Susie Alberg. And then if anybody else has anything they want to come up and say, I encourage them to do so too. All right, so, thank you. Thank you very much.
As David said, I'm Margaret Berry, and I met Karen in 1995 on that trip to China that was mentioned. As I was coming here, I noticed that the ginkgo tree had dropped all of its leaves today, and I think that's such a fitting symbolic gesture by the trees to remember Karen, who was such a golden personality. And so anyway, I marked the book, her book, in which she mentions our trip to China, and I thought I would just read what she said about it because it was very heartwarming. She told me she was going to write this book, but I just came across it in reading the book, obviously, and did not know what she was going to say, but this is what she said. In March of 1995, I traveled to China with 5 other Nebraska women to promote Chinese-American friendship. I met with business leaders and government officials to investigate starting a distribution company in China. We traveled to Beijing and had a banquet in our honor at Beijing University. We'd all packed books about women to donate to the library at Beijing University for their Women History Studies program. We also toured schools and met with business leaders. I was fascinated to learn that Chinese students were given tests that determined their future. Had they only used the test scores as a determinant of future career options, only women would have been able to become doctors. But as they consistently scored higher, instead, China allowed a 50-50 split, meaning that men could score lower and still become doctors. And that is so Karen, isn't it? I mean, her support of other women. In being on this trip with other women, my eyes were open to the fact that I had neglected my own happiness and the power of fulfilling friendships with like-minded people. It was the first time in a long time that I felt part of a group of women who were doing good in the world and whom I could also proudly call my personal friend. And we call Karen also our personal friend that we were so happy to know. You know, she really was spirited, adventurous, all the things that have already been said, talented, witty. One of the things I remember in China is that she was able to engage in making up stories about what we would see. Sometimes we didn't know what we were seeing, but we would make up these funny stories about what people were saying or what was happening. So I know that hadn't been mentioned, but she really did have a wonderful sense of wit. She was also sparkly and strong, and she told me she was going to write this book, and by golly, she did it. And I think that that's an inspiration to all of us. I've showed it to several people already and said, look, she wrote her book. She told her story, and we all need to remember, if we don't do it, no one is going to do it as well as we can and be as comprehensive. And I think this is such an inspiration to all of us to do the same in her memory. Anyway, I think it's fitting that I read the final paragraph of her book. My sincere hope is that this book can be a reminder of sorts for you if you have forgotten along life's winding and ever-changing road who you truly are. May you hear me whispering these words to you as I am in this moment. You are love. You are loving. You are lovable. You are whole and complete. Everything you touch turns to gold. And Karen, I think, truly is at peace. She did it her way, and she did it completely and peacefully. And we are all so lucky to have known her.
Well, I'm Susie Alberg, and I know Karen as a prospective neighbor. She lived next door to us, and Karen was an amazing person. I didn't really know her growing up. We moved into the neighborhood 45 years ago and knew Dorothy, and Dorothy was a wonderful neighbor. And then we'd see Karen and the other kids from time to time at her house, but didn't really have any major interaction with her. And then when she bought the family home, that's when we got to be more knowing each other, neighbors and stuff. She was very friendly, and we'd see Karen out working in her yard, and Karen had a hat she wore, and she had long sleeve shirts she put on, she had her long pants, and I think from the time she had Lyme disease, she was always very cautious when she was outside and working in her yard. And it was more Gracie that got us together. Gracie would come out, and if we would come outside our house, Gracie would bark at us, and so we had to go over and say hello to Gracie. Then through that, talking over the fence and talking about Gracie, we got to know each other a little better, and I'm not sure just when it happened, but the neighbor friendship connection became just a friendship. Karen was an amazing person. I was so in awe of her accomplishments, so in awe of her absolute caring kindness. Her spirit was just glowing all the time. And we got to know each other a lot more and learned more personal things about each other. And she shared a lot of things with me. And I knew we had a good friendship when the time came where she was going to be gone for a couple weeks and wanted to know, would I take over and watch her kombucha tea mushroom and take care of that? It had to have a certain procedure done. And so she had me come over and train me on how to do it. And so I made and did her tea and processed everything that was to do. And from that point on, we just had such a good connection. And when she was just so amazing to us. We did a major house remodel, and we were calling around looking for places. We were going to have to be out of our home for about 2 months, and I was looking to find places and stuff, and my husband mentioned it to her that, you know, what we were doing and stuff, and she goes, well, why don't you stay at my house? Just come and stay here. So we wound up staying in Karen's home for 3 months while they did the remodel. Karen had gone on to Washington, and so we kind of house sat for her and took care of her home, and she was such a gracious person. And through this time frame, one of her nephews was getting married, and she called and wanted to know, would it be okay if she and her family from Seattle would stay at the house while we were staying there? And I said, Karen, it's your home. You may come and stay at your home anytime. But she was just that type of a person, that caring, that considerate, that warm. And I am missing a very good friend. And when Karen made the decision she was definitely going to move to Seattle, sell the home, I helped her pack up her belongings, and we had some good times. There were a few tears that we shared, and it was amazing. She packed a 26-foot U-Haul trailer, or a truck, and there was a picture of it in her video. And she drove that from Lincoln, Nebraska to Seattle, Washington, all by herself with Gracie as her co-pilot in the front seat. And I was so amazed that she did something that courageous and taking all of her prized possessions that she had and wanted to take with her. And we spent couple of weeks packing up dishes, packing up lamps, packing up all kinds of things, just to all the stuff she needed to go into the truck. And then the day she headed out, it was a sad thing to see her going. And then she got as far as North Platte, and there was car troubles. And she called me, and she goes, I've been on the road all this time, and I can't, and she was just like, I don't know what to do. I'm just frustrated and everything. And so we just had a little prayer time together over the phone, and she was able to calm down. And then the people who were coming to assist with the truck, she had them, and so I felt good. She was going to be in a safe place, and she was going to have people watching over her to continue her journey. And then we've just kept in communications all the time while she was in Seattle. And the day she called me and told me that she said, Susie, I have some sad news. And she told me about her stroke. And it was so sad to me to think that she was going, but in her talking, and she was still at that point able to talk, and she told me, I'm not afraid, I'm good, everything's in place, I've done all the things I need to do. She wrote her book, and she sent us a copy of the book before, I think right after it got published or whatever, we received a copy in the mail. And she was so at peace, and so, I was just so amazed at her. And she was worried a little bit about what to do with Gracie and stuff, because Gracie and she didn't want anything to take care of. You know, Gracie needed to be taken care of, and we offered that we would come to Seattle and get Gracie if that gave her any peace and stuff. We had offered that a long time ago. We would gladly take Gracie. But she was just such an amazing and good friend, such a spiritual person, such a kind, caring type person. And she asked me before she passed away, she goes, how do you want me to come back to see you? And I told her, well, come back as a redbird. And I had a picture of a redbird that was my grandmother's, and my attachment wasn't as much to the redbird as what her attachment to what redbirds were. And she fed the birds in the neighborhood and did everything this way. So I gave her that picture. And then I told her, come back as a redbird. And the next day after I got the email that she had passed away, I was opening up the mail, and it was one of the donations, asking for donations and stuff, and I opened up and the first picture there was a picture of a redbird. So I know Karen came back to me. At that point, it was still paper. I'm still waiting for the live redbird to show up in our yard to know, so I can say hi to Karen that way. But Karen, as a neighbor, was a wonderful, wonderful person.
If anyone else has anything they'd like to say, feel free. And then Karen had requested that at some point during the proceeding that we recite the Lord's Prayer together. It was one of her favorites, so if everybody would join me, I'd try and lead. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us our daily bread. Forgive us as we forgive our trespassers. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever. Amen. And I thank everyone for coming, and that concludes what we have here today. So thank you very much.